Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Moore, I'm the town moderator, and I would like to welcome you to the 2023 special town meeting for the town of Dayton. And on October the 30th, I call it to order at 7:01 p.m. I'd like to mention that all voters must be checked in and seated in the voting section. All non-voters must be seated in the special section over here, which is reserved just for non-voters. To point out that there are emergency exits on the left and the right, as well as in the back of the hall. I feel like all town officials and residents may speak after obtaining permission from myself. All other persons, after obtaining permission from myself, may speak after the majority vote of the body. I'd like to remind everybody that we're a small town. Most of us know each other. Let's try to maintain a degree of decorum and politeness, especially when we're talking if there's criticism about people that are non-elected officials. Let's try to keep things simple. At this point in time, I'd like to ask everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could remain standing for a moment, I'd like to have a moment of silence for those people that we have lost since our last town meeting. Thank you all very much. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we dispense with the reading of the article and that reference to them be made by number and content. Second.
Motion made.
Sure. Turn the mic on. You want me to repeat that? Mr. Moderator, I move that we dispense with the reading of the articles and that reference to them be made by number and content.
Motion was made and seconded. All in favor? I'm sorry, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
They talked into it.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town consider adjournment this evening at 10 p.m. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Moderator,
Nice and quiet,
that
yeah.
the town vote to accept the reports of town officials.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Thank you. Yes. I do not understand what you mean by having given the reports. Correct. Yes. This is a motion to hear the reports.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? I'd like to just make a comment here that at this point and going forward, I'm going to enforce a 5-minute limit on any speakers from any town officials and their reports. So, do we have any town officials who wish to make a report at this time?
Thank you, and good evening. I just want to make it aware, I'm not good at shooting from the hip, so I wrote this over the last couple of days, and I'd just like to read it to you as best as I can. and I want to talk about the taxes as well as a few housekeeping issues in the town. But anyway, I stand before you as one of your selectmen, representing the interests and well-being of our town. We gather here at this meeting, special town meeting, to discuss and make important decisions that will shape the future of our community. Tonight, we have the opportunity to discuss matters that directly affects our community. Each article in the warrant has been carefully considered and prepared with the best interest of our town in mind. We encourage thoughtful discussions, hearing different perspectives, and ultimately making informed decisions that will shape our town's future. First, I would like to acknowledge your other two selectmen, Leonard Hull and Nicole Mello, and our town administrator, Mike Mullen. Without their hard work and talent this evening would almost be impossible. I also want to acknowledge the strength and resilience of our community. Since our last meeting, Since our last meeting, we have faced some challenges, from the economic uncertainties to replacement of our police chief with acting Chief George Nicholas, into addressing the needs of our own recruiting at our schools. First thing I want to talk about is taxes. I want to assure you that we understand the challenges faced by our taxpayers. We recognize the need for relief, especially during these uncertain times. With that said, the Selectmen in Article 10 is requesting for a $250,000 tax cut for our taxpayers. The decision was made with thoughtfulness and what works best for the taxpayers. Our goal is to create a sustainable and equitable tax system that benefits all members of our community. To that end, we have been working diligently on various measures to lower taxes, where we can reduce spending without compromising essential services and sought innovative solutions to maximizing our resources. One of our primary focuses has been attracting new businesses and industries to our town. By expanding our commercial base, we can increase revenue without relying solely on residential taxes. We also committed to improving the efficiency and effectiveness of our local government. We are implementing technology-driven solutions and streamlining the administrative process to eliminate unnecessary expenses and minimizing waste. However, it is important to note that lowering taxes cannot be achieved overnight. It requires careful planning, collaboration with various stakeholders, and a long-term vision. We remain steadfast in our dedication to providing essential services to our town's residents. Our town's infrastructure is being improved with investments in road repairs led by Tom Ferry, expansions of facilities with the hard work of Kevin Smith. We understand that a thriving community requires a solid foundation, and we are committed to maintaining that foundation. Education is another area we have made significant strides. We have worked closely with our school district to provide our students with a quality education that prepares them for success. We have invested in our schools, ensuring that they have the resources they need to offer innovative programs and support our students' growth and development. As we look to the future, we have ambitious visions for our town. We are actively planning for sustainable growth, preserving our natural resources, and enhancing the quality of life for all our residents. However, we cannot achieve these goals alone. Our success as a community relies on the active participation and engagement of each of you. I encourage you to join us in our efforts to share your ideas and contribute to the collective vision we have for our town. In closing, I want to express my gratitude toward the dedicated town employees, volunteers, and community leaders who work tirelessly behind the scenes. Your commitment and passion for our town are truly commendable. Thank you.
One minute to spare. Good job, Peter. You stole this. I can't run the meeting without this. All right. Any other town officials who would like to make a report at this time? Okay. Let's let Nancy go first. Yes, I believe this mic over here works. Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, town officials, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to present a report for the Board of Assessors. Thank you for attending this special town meeting to finalize the FY 2024 budget and to act on various bylaws and revisions. The Board of Assessors is finishing up a random review of properties classified under Chapter 61, 61A, and 61B. As a reminder, a minimum of 5 acres is required in order to apply for a classification under Chapter 61. 2 important deadlines are approaching. Exemptions must be filed by April 1st, 2024, but if they're received in the assessor's office as soon as possible, your February and April tax bills will be reduced to reflect the exemptions. After the January 2024 tax bills are issued, applications for abatements for real and personal property must be received by February 1st, 2024. Forms to apply for exemptions or abatements are available online in the assessor's office. Anyone needing assistance or having questions should contact the assessor's office. In a few weeks, the Board of Assessors will meet with the Board of Selectmen, at which time the tax rates for FY 2024 will be set. This is an open public meeting. If anyone wishes to attend, it will be held at the Old Town Hall. Thank you. Respectfully submitted, Eric J. Easterday, Chairman, Nancy J. Goodlott, Clerk, and William F. Lake, Member.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else?
There was a request prior to the meeting to just give out a couple of numbers beforehand. So if the articles pass as they're written, free cash at the end of the meeting will be $739,392. Stabilization is $1.933 million, and capital stabilization will be $1.519. Neither of those accounts have any articles contributing money into them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other town officials? Give a report at this time. Hearing none, we're going to move on to Article 2.
I move that the town transfer from free cash the amount of $4,587.75 to pay prior year bills. Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 3.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from free cash the amount of $106,146.76 to be expended by the fire chief as a third payment of a 7-year lease purchase of a new fire engine and any necessary accessories.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 4.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from free cash the amount of $46,347.74 to the fund to fund the fiscal year 2023 snow and ice deficit. Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 5.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,561.92 to be expended by the Highway Superintendent as the 5th and final year lease payment on the 2020 street sweeper voted in Article 22 of the annual town meeting warrant of June 15, 2020. Finance Committee approved.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, sir. Please come to the microphone. State your name and address.
David Carpenter, William Street, Dayton. I was just reading that the article, they said it was the 5th and final payment, but the warrant does not state that. The warrant says it's the 4th year.
The warrant did say 4th year, but it was
So the motion is correct. Motion is correct. Hey, we call this Scrivener's error. Yeah, that's it. Okay, anyone else like to discuss this? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the amount of $90,000 to fund unforeseen educational and non-resident student vocational tuition and transportation costs as required by the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Finance Committee supports.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $300,000 to be expended by the Highway Superintendent for Main Street infrastructure and roadway improvements. Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 8.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the amount of $40,000 to Department Number 192, Public Buildings and Properties Maintenance, to provide additional funding in the fiscal year of 2024 budget for energy and utility costs.
Any Board of Selectmen?
Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 9.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $90,000 to the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund established to cover the unfunded actuarial liability for retirees' health care and life insurance benefits. Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. And to your question, please come forward to the mic, state your name and address.
My name is Joanne Peterson, 3091 Hunters Hill Drive, and I've had to listen to all these articles go on. I don't understand why we're asking for more money from the town, and why weren't these amounts of money in the budget?
So we're only talking about Article 9 right now.
Okay. Why wasn't that in the budget?
So the question is, why was the $90,000 for, my understanding is this is for retiree benefits. Why was this not included? Maybe.
So the other retiree employee health benefits, the actuaries do recommend we try as a town to put in about $135,000 a year. For the budget in the spring, we really only feel comfortable with the roughly 45 that goes in there in the budget. When the free cash comes in, if the money is available, then we can increase that funding here with voter approval. But if the money's not there in the spring, then we don't feel it's right at that point to ask for it.
Okay. I don't get it. You know what the amount of money you're going to need for the retiree benefits.
Well, we know what the total amount is, and the total amount is millions. So this is an amount that we can put each year into this account to try and eat into some of that money. But we don't have the amount to take 1/20th of the total amount each year. We put in what we can put in the annual, and then what we can put in the special.
So the retirees are going to get their money one way or the other. Is that correct?
Yes. No, yeah, this is not, right, and this is just health insurance too.
Okay. well, it's not going to impact them on health insurance, because I know.
This helps defray the future costs of the town.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Discussion? Are you raising your hands? Yep. Come on down.
Hi, I'm Patty D.R.R.H.S, 1884 Smith Street. I have a follow-up question. So, what I'm hearing you say is the actuaries provide an estimate for what we need to fund for the OPEB, and that we don't have those funds available, or you don't feel comfortable requesting those funds. I guess my question to that is then, why are we thinking to release $250,000 if we can't meet our retirement requirements for our retirees?
So to fully fund the benefits as of today, you'd be locking up.
$9.5 million.
Oh, sure, I understand.
So
but they give you an annual amount, you mentioned 40,000.
So we look to do that much every year, but we really in the fall and the spring can't commit to doing that full amount. So now we come back to you and ask for more.
Right, I understand what you're saying, but my point is then you're also recommend, the Finance Committee is also recommending releasing $250,000 in free cash. So on one hand, you're saying you can't fund the anticipated amount based on the actuary's recommendation. And on the other hand, you're saying you're going to do a tax break for $250,000. Those things don't make sense to me. So I'm looking for more clarification.
Yeah, it's all a balancing act too between trying to keep tax rates lower today and in the future, because the retiree health insurance is a bill that's coming due at some point. So are the future residents of Dayton going to be stuck with that entire $9.2 million in order for us to say take that $90,000 and make the tax reduction $340,000 today? We're trying to do a little bit of both.
It's a contractual obligation, OPEB is though, right?
We do not have a contractual obligation to fund a lot of towns leave this unfunded and that amount just keeps growing. Dayton's done a really good job over the last 10 plus years of putting some money aside each year into that fund so that we're actually in a better position than a lot of towns.
Okay, so to go back to the question that the woman before me asked, she asked a question about the retirees receiving the benefits that were quoted to them, and you said that that is something that would happen. And then I'm also hearing you say that you're not funding the amount the actuaries are recommending, and you're looking to do a tax rate. I'm trying to understand how all of that makes sense mathematically.
So the future retirees are going to be, or the current retirees for that matter, they are going to receive the benefits that they've negotiated and worked for. It's really just a question of when that bill gets paid. Is it paid partially today? Are we putting a down payment on it today? Or is that bill going to be slapped down 10 years from now all at once?
And so I guess the question is, why aren't we funding what the actuaries recommend if we have free cash available to do so?
So we are roughly doing what they're roughly a little bit above.
So the 45 plus the
Plus,
amount that you're
plus,
asking for.
right.
And so if we release the 250 now, are we going to actually, in the spring, ask for less than the actuaries are recommending, and then again in the fall ask for it to be updated?
So
is that the game that we're playing?
I can tell you that in my 12 years here, we've always funded it minimally in the annual budget, and then seen where free cash was and seen it and put more money in at that point in the fall. A lot of times, not to get off tangent, but in the fall we like to fill the OPEB. We like to put some money into the stabilization funds, and it's kind of, in my opinion, the special town meeting is more of kind of shoring things up because we know then where we were at the end of the year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
If I may follow up on that, I think that my limited understanding of this OPEB system, the $9 million is not necessarily even the total amount we will actually have to pay.
The $9 million would be the present value of the future costs.
If it was maximum, but that's the worst of it, correct?
It would be, so if we took, as a town employee, if you were the only town employee The actuaries would look at what your the estimated cost of insuring you for the rest of their life, and then throw that into $1 today.
Right. But it's not a bill. I think that's the important thing.
It's not necessarily one bill.
This isn't a $9 million bill that they're not paying. And I believe, to paraphrase what you said, is that we are funding them to the level that is recommended and prudent. We're not shortchanging this at all.
Correct. And, yeah, like I said, and from an overall standpoint, Dayton is in a much better position than most towns in Commonwealth.
Does that answer your question, Will? Great, thank you very much. Anybody else like to have a discussion on this? Okay, then in that case, all in favor? Oh, I see someone else raising their hand. Is that who I think? Is that Mr. Reynolds? You had your chance to talk, all right.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Paul Reynolds of 725 Main Street. I am also the town treasurer, and one of my duties is I'm also the health insurance administrator for the town. So as others have already said, some towns do not fund their OPEB trust at all, and they do what you call pay-go, where they just pay for the whatever percentage of their retirees' health care that they're paying for out of their operational budget as they go, which that is a method of doing OPEB. However, it's far more preferable to set aside that money. You know, we've made the promise to our retirees, we've made the promise to our employees that when they do finish their lifetime of service, they do retire. That part of allowing the people who spend their careers working for us to retire in dignity is that we're going to absorb a portion of their health insurance costs. There's an old saying that says the best time to plant the tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. And funding your unfunded OPEB liability, I believe that the best time to do that was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. Additionally, there's some practical concerns that extend beyond the fact that it feels good to do the right thing with our money. Some things extend beyond that. For example, we recently had some issuers' comments done by Moody's, who's a bond rating agency, and we've got a strong bond rating at AA3. And one of the comments that was made in the issuer's comment was our OPEB liability and the fact that the town is making consistent steps to fund that and make sure that we're putting the money where it needs to be. Additionally, because of the increased value of money over time, if we invested today, the money that we invested today will have a time-weighted anticipated return that will be factored in by the actuaries. So every dollar that you put into your funding of OPEB today will actually reduce your liability by more than a dollar. There are other things that factor into the actuarial science, but just as an example, we contributed $125,000 last year, and our OPEB liability actually decreased from last year by about $385,000. So there are other factors for that. It's not just 1 to 3, but just to illustrate that the money we invest today will reduce that liability tomorrow. And then just to reiterate that we have, and it was passed at town meeting, that we will continue to absorb a portion of our retirees' health insurance costs. And I believe that it's just good fiscal sense to set aside that money now and to make sure that we're taking the steps today to ensure that we have the ability in our fiscal position to responsibly and equitably do that tomorrow. So I hope that answers everybody's questions. Thank you.
Anyone else like to discuss this matter? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 10.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash a sum of $250,000 to reduce the tax rate. The Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I would like to make a motion to amend Article 10 to read a sum of $350,000 to reduce the tax rate.
Motion made and seconded. Now this is a motion on amending the article to change the amount from $250,000 to $350,000. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Moderator, the town of Dayton received $1.7 million in free cash. It was mentioned this evening that if the current articles are
passed without being amended, that there would be $739,000 and change left in free cash for the remainder of the year. Currently, there is $800,000 of tax money that has not been collected by the town of Dayton. This clearly indicates that some Dayton residents are having a difficult time paying taxes. It is no secret that one of the criticisms in this town is the high tax rate. And I have heard many people say the tax rate is big to them. I would rather see us reduce the tax burden and ask the town's treasurer to work diligently to collect some of the $800,000 that is owed to the town, thus recouping some of the $100,000 at least that, if my amendment should pass, would take some of the burden off the taxpayer and allow us to do the things that we all want to do.
May I ask the accountants, I didn't know there was this, the amount of money that we have not collected, is that included in free cash or not? It's deducted, so we actually, if we included that amount, we'd have like 2.5-ish. Any other discussion? Sir, come on up front. Please state your name and address.
David Arujo, 790 Tremont Street. I was going to ask this question under the original article, but I would ask the gentleman if he has a breakdown or what the process would be for reducing the taxes by the 350, is that what you said? 350. In other words, who would that affect? Would it affect the people at the low income? Would it affect our seniors? Because obviously I do agree that there probably are people in town that have a difficult time meeting their obligation of paying the taxes. But there are people in town who, can't afford it and should help out those people who possibly are seniors and are on a fixed income. But I would like to know how this affects and what the process would be and how this 350 is doled out.
So I can answer that question, or Nancy, would you like to answer it?
Lot 631 Great Terrace, Board of Assessors. $350,000 reduction of taxes is insignificant, and I don't say that sarcastically. It's pennies on the tax rate. You heard me when I gave the report earlier tonight. I talked about exemptions and abatements. Anyone who thinks they may be eligible for exemptions needs to get in touch with the assessor's office. Those having difficulty paying taxes are, in certain cases, eligible. We have certain classifications, veterans, widows, widower, hardship. There's a number of them. Those exemptions are to help the people who are really having difficulty paying their taxes. The $350,000 is just going to come off the top. So, as I mentioned, there'll be a meeting later on before the year ends so that we can get the tax bills out, where the Board of Assessors and the Board of Selectmen will meet and will set the tax rates. When we finish here tonight, whatever is expended that is raise and appropriate will be added to what was approved at the annual town meeting, raise and appropriate. When you hear those words, they mean taxes. So when we know the total from the two town meetings, the 350 will come off, and then we'll look to see where we are with this. But in all honesty, the 350 does not go to those who are the neediest. That isn't how it works. So that's why I mentioned again, exemptions, very important. And if you're not sure if you're qualified, just get in touch with the assessor's office. And do it as soon as possible so you can get your information. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. So I'd just like to add to what she said in that this money, this extra, whether it be 250 or 350, it is not going to any particular group or person. It is simply lowering the entire tax burden for the whole town. So it will reduce the number, $17.35 or whatever it happens to be. You might get $17.32 or something. That's where that money is going to go. Did that answer your question, sir? Mr. Yeah.
Can I follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
And I appreciate the answer. But my thought is that when I got the warrant today and reading through it, that we do have a lot of projects that are on the block that are upcoming. And some of them I would say are very, very, very important. And I'm just wondering if this $350,000 will affect those projects in any way, moving the town forward. The town, we want to stay obviously in the game. We are very responsible, fiscal responsible, and so on, as the reports from Mr. Karen and Peter pointed out at the beginning. But it just concerns me that, once that money is allocated and it's not all been collected, but hopefully it will be. But once that money is allocated and collected, it's spoken for and we should move on. If we think that we have a surplus, then maybe we should look at lowering the tax rate at the end of the year when you have that meeting for fiscal 2024, 2025, rather than taking back money that we've already allocated. And because I see some of the things that we're looking to do, as I said, in town, to stay in the game, we really need to, in my opinion, is to leave it as is. Thank you.
I think I'd like to ask the Finance Committee to give an explanation of what exactly is free cash and where it comes from and how do we get it.
Do you want the short version? Short version. So basically free cash is money from the prior budget that was budgeted but didn't get spent, or receipts that were budgeted that came in excess.
Plus whatever we had left over from last year.
That would roll into it.
So it's not like this money is earmarked for something else. Sir.
Yeah, Glenn Jefferson, 270 Hillcrest Drive. So follow-up question to that. The town doesn't have to abide by a limit of, like, the school district, you can only keep 5%. Okay, so, second thing, as far as Lenny's amendment or the article in general, I agree with David, or Mr. Drew said is, and to Nancy's point, this is peanuts in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I'm not gonna say, yeah, don't get the taxes back, but in the grand scheme, I'd like to know the selectmen and the FinCom. We know we have BP, we know we have a lot of uncertainties. $250,000, $300,000 could be a significant partial payment to next year's debt on bill if the debt exclusion fails. We saw this last year. We've seen this many years with the town reports than what we face. And giving it back when we're not really going to see a significant difference to the taxpayers, I know we're discussing the motion.
Actually, I want to actually limit your comments to the motion.
So, what I wanted to say, so as far as the motion, I feel either way we should, as a body, should be really conservative of giving funds back to the towns, knowing what we have coming ahead.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Kevin Smith Jr., 1147 Center Street. So we just passed Article 8, which was raise and appropriate. So we already raised and appropriated $40,000 for $250 and now $350, reducing it down to $310. So we kind of already shot ourselves in the foot, and it kind of just seems like some sort of good faith gesture, like Mr. Rujo. Just to state, we have a lot of projects coming down the pipeline, so why would we give this little bit back when we know we have?
So please limit your comments to the motion to amend right now. going from 250 to 350.
The 100,000, I don't think is gonna make a difference. We know we have things coming in the pipeline. Most schools, number one, we know we have, the feasibility study coming up for the elementary school. Everybody's concerned about our kids being in trailers, so let's not give this little tiny crumb back when we're gonna need it to make sure our children have a future.
Understood. Anyone else? Hold on, I want to try to give everybody a fair shot. I'll give you a shot. Yes, sir, Mr. Gibbs.
I think people can hear me from here, right? Pretty loud.
Speak loudly, please.
But I think my concern about doing this, and they're saying for $2, perhaps for each household, that are 27 or 2,800 households, whatever, that might come out to about $120 a year per household, or something like that. I do the math. On the other hand, I would rather see this be more specific, potentially, and look at the corporate side. We talk about the travel industry in town. The corporate tax is quite high, and that's one of the main reasons we can't get industry in town, let alone build water mains we need, when the pipes we need to attract industry. Lastly, what I would say is, this town recently invoked a hiring freeze. We invoked a hiring freeze because of our budgetary constraints. If we do this, that makes that hiring freeze even more complex because we're not potentially going to be able to staff positions that need to be staffed as people retire. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Higgins? Feel free to just shout Mr. Moderator or something like that. It's hard to see the people in the back.
I just wanted to direct a question, if I could, through you to the Finance Committee. They originally had recommended a $250,000 reduction. I just wanted to know what their logic was in terms of, one, making a recommendation, and then two, their opinion on the amended.
I am having a hard time hearing him. Is anybody else?
I just wanted to, there you go. Yeah, I just wanted to direct a question, if I could, to the Finance Committee on what was their logic for the original suggestion of a $250,000 tax reduction, and then two, their opinion on the suggested amendment, and what would be their logic for or against it.
Okay, so yeah, the question is, they originally recommended 250. Why that number to the Finance Committee?
So the Finance Committee votes on warrant articles that are proposed by the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen proposed a $250,000 reduction. We debated it. We felt at the end of the day that it was a reasonable request because, as we all know as well as everybody else, that people are hurting. Yes, it is a small drop in the bucket compared to your overall tax bill. I've heard $20 for the average house for a year, not for a month or even 6 months. But it is something. $350,000 we were not requested to discuss or deliberate. I can only give you my personal opinion that I agree there's too much coming up the pipeline that we need to be watching where that money is going, and that there are better places to spend that money than an additional $5 to the average house.
Yes. Would the Board of Selectmen like to speak to why they recommended 250?
This coming year, we have some major things on the table. One of the things is the school department wants to have a feasibility study done. With that study, if approved, would require us to spend $2 million just for that feasibility study. $1 million of that would come back to the town. So in a sense, it's going to cost us $1 million. But in order, if the feasibility study passes, we would have to prove to the state that we have $2 million in the bank to cover the cost of this study. Coming up with the $250,000, we felt that we wanted to give something back to the town. Granted, it's small, but it shows good faith. We manage our taxes as close as we can, and we felt that a $250,000 amount was something that we could give back to the town, as well as keep money in the bank to pay for this feasibility study if necessary. Just like other people have said, it might be small, but it's a significant amount to some people.
But to Mr. Higgins' question, was there a reason why 250? Where did that number come from?
We have it. I'm sorry. Yes, the bottom line was we had $250,000 left over from what we were going to be obligated to spend, and still have money in the bank to pay for that feasibility study.
Okay. Anything else? Sure, then go ahead.
There were two purposes for making this amendment. One was to open discussion to involve the voters, as we're doing this evening, and the purpose being, I think all of you are aware this evening that we have some tight times coming. And with that, we have a June meeting, which we're going to be talking about the additional free cash, over $739,000 that will be available, and the need for us to take a conservative approach. So even if this amendment doesn't pass, the message is that, one, the voters need to be involved in the process. And we have a lot more people here than we usually do in a selectmen's meeting. And secondly, that the taxpayers are hurting. Some of the people in this town are really hurting. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm a finance person, so I get a little excited. D.R.R.H.S, 1884 Smith Street. So I actually have a question. So we have free cash surplus, obviously great. Assuming that's invested in some pretty great yielding accounts. But I do want to know, I want to understand the process. Was that Foxwoods? I do want to understand the process of allocating those excess funds to, say, other things. So, for example, Mr. Hull, you were mentioned in the Gazette recently about overcrowding of the elementary school, patches and repairs needed at D.R., cramped firefighter quarters. So I'm curious, as the person who is sort of stewarding these things that are concerning for our town, what's the process of, instead of releasing that 250, 350, depending on what's passed or what's before us, what is the process of allocating that to one of those needed places that you mentioned in the Gazette recently?
I'm sorry.
Happy to say it again.
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to ask to stick to just the motion to amend right now. And can you...
Okay, what would be the process of reallocating that additional $100,000 that's on the current amendment request to one of the needed things that you outlined in the Gazette recently, Mr. Hall?
That's what I said earlier about keeping that $100,000 aside to help pay for that feasibility study. We would be $100,000 short if we went to the town or went to the state and said, we want a feasibility study. We would have to look at $100,000 that we would not have at the time.
I'd like to describe, if we don't give back this $100,000, it's going to go into the bank account, and it's going to stay there until next year. It's not going to get touched.
So I'm asking, what's the process of using those excess funds for other things?
In our next annual town meeting, you would have to have a warrant to say to spend from free cash.
So in theory, if we didn't approve either the 250 that we're not voting on right now, or the additional 100 that we're trying to vote on right now, that would remain in surplus, that we could then next year vote on addressing some of these other concerns.
That is
That's
correct.
the process.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I can't see anybody. Yell out if you... Come on up. Come on down. You're the next contestant on the special town meeting. Please say your name and address.
Jenna Montero, 3109 Millers Lane. So my question is like everybody else has already said, there's better ways that we could be using this money than your good faith gesture of cutting our taxes. Which, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, at this point, I don't need that money, and I can't speak for everybody else, but I would rather pay my taxes as what they are. Why couldn't that money be designated to go specifically allocated to a feasibility study instead of trying to keep it and then now having to push it off later? So it won't meet that requirement at this time because we didn't pass the article correctly. Is that what I'm understanding?
I didn't understand the last part, but let me
So,
address what you said earlier.
if we wanted to do a feasibility study and we're $100,000 short for that, now if we don't pass the article tonight for the town to be able to keep that money as the tax income, will we have to wait and lose our opportunity to have that extra $100,000 for the feasibility study?
The state is going to let us know in December whether or not we are eligible for matching funds for the new school, or in addition to the school, or whatever you want to call it. If we do not have that $2 million in the bank, we would lose the opportunity to have any kind of a study.
Correct, and we are $100,000 short, correct?
Correct.
So, my question is, could we have created an article for tonight that asked for us to allocate $100,000 out of free cash to go towards the $2 million we needed for the feasibility study?
We wouldn't need an article. Capitalization. Right, that would be.
Okay, so we can say no to this tax credit, or however you guys worded it, and we can still get our feasibility study.
The only thing we're going to say in the yes and no to is whether we're going to make it 250 or 350. Then there'll be a vote to say if we want to have it 250.
Right.
So right now, we're just talking about the difference between 250 and 350, and I think I understand your question. There's nothing we can do right now. I mean, the articles are written. What's going to happen is we're either going to pass this or not pass this. If it passes, then the money's going to go back to the people in the form of a tax. If it does not pass, or if it's reduced, then what's going to happen is that money's going to stay in the bank. It's going to stay there until our next town meeting. And then it will become part of it. It will still be available as free cash. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It will still be available as free cash. So we can, if you want to designate that for a feasibility study or something else, at that point, we can, yes. It's just like your house, you know, you got money in the bank, are you gonna...
Well, I'm just sitting here being like, okay, like $250,000, honestly. I appreciate the gesture, but that doesn't help anybody in this room when we have the BP thing coming on us next year as far as what we're gonna have to be raised up in taxes so we can offset that. I just feel entirely that, and I think a lot of people agree with me, that there's way better use for these funds than to say, hey, let's give you guys a $350,000 tax rate. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come to the microphone. Thank you.
All the questions require a vote, so might as well, like, if I ask all the questions,
Then yes, we would have to take a vote.
Bob Perry, Stanzione Drive. Based on a $23 million budget, giving back $350,000 is approximately a 1.5% give back. 250K is 1.08%. Quite honestly, I'm not in favor of the reducing the taxes, simply because next year we're going to have to reach into our pockets and take it back out again because we have some significant issues coming up. I would prefer to leave it in free cash, keep our tax rate as is, because it's going to be essentially a very insignificant reduction in our overall taxes. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay, gotcha. All right, that being said, now we're going to take a vote on, this is a motion to amend from 250 to 350. It is not the entire article, just the motion to amend. All in favor to amend from 250 to 350? Aye. All opposed? No. The amendment fails. Now we're going to go back to the original motion for Article 10. Any discussion on whether we should take 250 and give it to reduction of taxes? Mr. Jefferson.
Yeah, Glenn Jefferson again. Just to echo what we all heard in the last discussion, I encourage everyone to vote this down just because there's a lot coming. Last year, even from this school district, we had to make cuts just to try and get through for the uncertainty. So the only thing I strongly encourage is us to vote this down, but also selectmen and FinCom come up with a plan on what we're going to do to fund VP. And this will kind of be, if that exclusion fails or a plan this year, at least we have something in the bank to help. So I do appreciate the gesture, and you guys can say you made an attempt, but the town voted this, and we're planning for the future if this fails. So.
Anyone else? All in favor? All opposed? Nay. The article fails. Moving on to Article 11.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $28,000 to have Aquaria LLC, $13,000, and Dayton Power LLC, $15,000, appraisal for the fiscal year 2025, 5-year certification reevaluations as required by the Department of Revenue. The Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Smith.
Just a quick question that I know you can answer. What's the rate of return on the taxes that we collect from those two entities versus what we're paying to have them assessed?
I do not know those numbers off the top of my head. Nancy, do you know? I do believe that the taxes that we would receive will exceed the 28,000.
Not only will it exceed it, we are required by the Department of Revenue to do this every 5 years. If we do not have this valuation, they're still going to have to be evaluated. We don't want to do it annually because then you pay for it annually, which is going to be well in excess of $28,000. So this is how you do these two industries. They are unique, and the type of assessing that is done for our real estate and commercial property in town is not the same that's done. You have to have a specialist look at Dayton Power and Aquaria because of the type of businesses they are. So if we don't raise this money and do this, it's going to cost us more in the long run. And by the way, they can take us to appellate tax court every year. It's just not worth it.
I think Mr. Smith's question was to the point of, how much money are we going to get out of investing this $28,000? Is that about right?
Well, in excess of $28,000.
In excess of $28,000. That's a good enough answer. Yes, sir. Come on down.
Good evening, Paul Reynolds, 725 Main Street. Dayton Power is the town's top taxpayer, approximately $765,000 per year. And Aquaria is, forgive me if I misquote a little bit, either third or fourth at approximately $500,000 per year. So I say the ROI is pretty good.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. Article 12.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $15,000 to fund necessary repairs to the Highway Department 2011 Ford bucket truck.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 13.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to establish a new cannabis stabilization fund in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, the purpose of which will be to establish clear accounting and tracking of revenues generated from host community agreements between the town and marijuana establishments and of expenditures of said funds approved by town meeting. Finance committee approved.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Yes, sir. Mr. Rujo.
So I'm kind of looking for a little bit of an explanation, because the next several articles talk about Chapter 40, Section 5B. It talks about this particular one establishing a cannabis stabilization fund. It talks in the next couple articles about receipts and so on. And reading through it, I'm not the brightest person, but I'm a little confused and just looking for some type of an explanation from someone who understands it better than I. Again, if I have further questions, I'll come up, but you know, the next several articles talk about this 40B, Section 5B, opioid, cannabis, receipts, and how it all works. I'm just, you know, want to make sure I'm clear, so when I vote for it, I want to make sure I'm voting the proper way.
Okay, refer that to our town accountant.
I'm Serena, town accountant. So we have one establishment in Dayton that sells recreationally, and with them we have our host community agreement. So the funds that we receive from them on an annual basis is a percentage of their gross sales. Initially, when the funds were set up, it was set up in a special revenue type fund. After discussions with the Department of Revenue and our local rep who certifies our free cash, it was established that the best practice for these type of funds is to be in a separate capital stabilization fund. And that way it's, you know, through town meeting for the items to be expended by the guidelines that have been set forth through the state. It's very specific on what the money can be used on. And if we were to just leave it in a general fund revenue or in a special revenue fund, there's a chance of it being misguided and expensed or closed out to free cash and kind of lost in free cash. Article number 15 that has the $36,000, that reflects exactly what we had received previously, but since we did not have a stabilization fund set up, I had to let it close out through free cash, also through the guidance of DOR, and then now we're voting it out of free cash into the proper fund that it should be in, which is the stabilization. And that's actually basically the same explanation for the next article.
Sounds good to me. Anybody else want to speak first? Go on down, sir. Ma'am? Oh, sorry, I can't see you.
Jenna Montero, 3109 Mills Lane. So specific, like, outlets to spend those funds, do you know exactly, like, where we can use them and utilize them for with that specific account?
Yes, there are state guidelines out there.
Can you give me some examples?
Off the top.
Public
safety.
Like the labor expenses, I think capital expenses as well.
Like educational and like stuff that can like help prevent these sort of things, maybe like a D.R.R.H.S reference, so to speak, sort of.
D.R.R.H.S, yes. Yes, exactly.
Yep, all right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Being none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 14.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept the fourth paragraph of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, which allows the dedication without further appropriation of all or a percentage not less than 25% of particular fees, charges, or receipts to a stabilization fund established under said section of the general laws to to be effective for the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2023. Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 16. I'm sorry, Article 15.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $36,042.40 and dedicate community impact fees paid by marijuana establishments operating within the town, collected in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 94G, Section 3, to the Cannabis Stabilization Fund established under Article 13, effective for fiscal year 2024, beginning on July 1st, 2023. Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 16.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to create a special purpose opioid stabilization fund in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, to which receipts from the Massachusetts State Subdivision, the statewide opioid settlement fund, should be appropriated annually to be used to supplement and strengthen resources available to communities and families for substance use disorder prevention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Oh, wait, Ms. Montero?
Sorry, you guys can tell I read the warrant before I came today, so. So if we're gonna do this, and I'm assuming it's set up just like the marijuana one would be, where do we intend, it's talking about communities and families for substance use, prevention, harm reduction, treatment, recovery. So those are all gonna be within Dayton, I'm assuming, correct? So we don't really have facilities set up in place in town already to handle these sort of things. And I don't want to say hey, let's send them elsewhere, but we have great resources in surrounding towns. So is there any ideas or to where and how exactly we're going to utilize this in these aspects? Because we've already got the dispensary that we're creating a special account for that we can use these funds in a similar fashion. But we don't have an opioid store that's going to be giving us tax revenue for this. So what exactly is this going to be? Huh? So this is going to be for us, they're giving us the money from the state, we're putting it in a separate account, and we're going to be able to create new programs. So do we have ideas exactly how we're going to facilitate these funds?
May I speak on this? So first of all, this isn't money from the state. This is money from settlements from pharmaceutical companies that have had a play in this opioid epidemic that we have. So they have now been giving us back money. We won't be getting as much money as some other towns, so some of the things that you named are things that we wouldn't be able to create, like you said, like a harm reduction center or stuff like that. We've already started doing work throughout the year, so it would kind of sustain some of that work that we've already done. We're working with other towns, depending on how the town decides to go. Some towns make a committee, they decide what's going to happen with the money. We don't have as much money, so that may not be the way that we go. But it's not going to be to the point that you said. That's for bigger towns and for more funds than we're going to get. I think it's over the years, 48,000 altogether. So that's not really a lot, and it ends at some point, so we have to take that into accountability. We don't want to start anything that we can't fund after this money ends.
So do you guys have ideas as to how you're going to utilize these resources when they come in this
already started receiving the monies. And as for a plan, I don't want to speak just for myself because I think fire and police should be involved. So it's going to be more of a group effort on what we decide that we do with this money.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Smith?
Just want to give a little bit of information to Ms. Montero. So the town nurse, Nicole Mello, has already established the Narcan trainings for the town. There's also Narcan available in public spaces because of the Healing Community Study, which is part of this funding. And there's been collaboration with the police department. You know, I've seen our community outreach officer working along with her and the Healing Community Study. So there is a plan, and you kind of got to look a little bit, but there has been trainings going on, so we are utilizing money to help our community and surrounding communities.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 17.
I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the amount of $10,114.89 to the opioid settlement stabilization fund established at the October 30th, 2023 special town meeting. Finance Committee recommends.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 18.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaws by deleting section 5420, 5441, 5442, 5445, 5450, and 5460, and replacing the same with new sections 5420, 5441, 5442, 5445, 5450, and 5460, and by italicizing all words within section 5400 of said bylaws that are defined in section 6 definitions and all incorporated and set forth in Article 18.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Good evening, Nick. Jeff Cavallo, the chair of your planning board. Care to tell us a little bit there? Thank you. So the article I have before you tonight, Article 18, there's one right after this, also from the planning board, but for Article 18, what we're doing here is if you open up your bylaws, you should always carry one around just in case. Got one left, that's good. Good, excellent. So in the, one of the goals we had this year in the planning board was to go through and take another fresh look at the bylaws, going through, fixing any typographic errors, making it more efficient, making it better for developers coming to the town, making it better for the residents that are here. So with all those things in mind, the planning board and I have been working diligently through this section and the article right after this, but specifically on the site plan review process, we went through it and cleaned up a lot of the language. There was some confusing language, we wanted to clean that up, allowing the waiver process to be a little bit more streamlined and such. So the entire thing is in front of you. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions if you have any, but that's what this article is about. Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question of, is there any fundamentally, are we changing anything fundamentally here beyond, as you said, just cleaning things up a bit?
No, not really. Nothing, no big showstoppers. We're not changing any processes. We're just making it more consistent from section to section and working towards eventually going through the entire bylaw book so that the whole book reads like a homogeneous document. Because unfortunately what winds up happening is over the years, as different sections get rewritten and approved, it's a completely new body on the planning board, and you get different voice, so to speak, from section to section. So we're trying to make it a consistent document, and that's part of what the motivation here is.
Anyone else? Okay, that being said, I do believe this is a zoning bylaw change, which requires a two-thirds vote, correct? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Article 19.
Mr. Moderator?
Please.
I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaws by deleting section 4659A2, 4659A3, and 4659A4 of said bylaws, and replacing the same with new sections 4659A2, 4659A3, and 4659A4, and by removing large-scale mounted solar photovoltaic installation from section 6 definitions, as it no longer applies, by italicizing all words within section 4600 of said bylaws that are defined in section 6 definitions, and all incorporated and set forth in Article 19.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? I'd like to ask the same question.
Mr. Moderator, if I may. So Article 19 is a focus of section 4600 of your town bylaws. And this is the name of the section is
Facilities, yeah.
Thank you. That's a specific name. Thank you very much. So this is all your solar farms in the town of Dayton. And the amendment we have before you tonight, very simply again, is to really just go through and I mentioned this in the previous, some of it is just to clean up some of the language, but really the focus here specifically was increase of buffers. Now specifically, I want to point out that we went and changed the side and rear yard requirements from 75 feet to 100 feet, and also the, well, it would be, let me read this specifically, it was a depth of 75 feet to 100 feet, and an increase of 100 from 100 feet to 200 feet for any dwelling on any other parcel. So instead of being 75 feet from a property line and 100 feet to a dwelling on another parcel, we made those numbers 100 and 200. So we're increasing the buffer. And the reason we're doing that is we've looked at existing projects in the town of Dayton and reconsidering what we came to you with last year this time and increasing those numbers. That's the reason for that. And additionally, in the same idea to increase buffer, we increased the required minimum vegetative buffer from 30 feet to 50 feet. Now, this sounds great for residents. Developers might be concerned because now you're looking at shrinking what they can put in for solar panels. So how do we balance that? Because I mentioned the motivation was not only to make things better for the residents, but also make things easier for developers. Everything is, there's a waiver process in all these things really. So we want to balance not only being able to make things better for the town residents, but also allowing developers that come to the town of Dayton on a case-by-case basis to request a waiver. Now, we know on the planning board that we want to make decisions that make sense, and we also want to do things within the letter of the law. So to protect the town residents, we increase those numbers to larger numbers because we can always back out. We can always say, all right, in this particular situation, a 200-foot buffer to really or a 100-foot buffer to a property line doesn't necessarily make sense because this property is abutting wetlands and nothing's ever going to go there. So that allows us to make case-by-case basis waivers. So that gives us some flexibility. So you start big and you can work your way back. What you can't do is start small and then have more restrictions later on. So we wanted to increase it. The other stuff we mentioned here was really, there was an old definition in the appendix that had to go because it was accidentally left in last year. And we just want to make it easier so that if any resident sits down and looks at the bylaw, like I do every evening, it's great reading. If you see any word that's italicized, that's a word that shows up in the glossary. Just a quick cue. So you look, oh, that's in the glossary. We'll look it up. Right now, it's not necessarily obvious.
Thank you. Now I know how to cure my insomnia. Any other discussion? No? Hearing none? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 20.
That the town vote to amend the town of Dayton's general bylaws by adding a new article to be inserted after Article 41 as presented in Article 20.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Motion made to amend and seconded. Please. State the motion before it's seconded.
So I would like to make a motion to amend section 1.3 financial team. The first sentence, there shall be a financial team comprised of the town administrator, town accountant, treasurer collector, principal assessor, town clerk, and human resources.
You want to add town clerk?
Yes.
So motion second. So now we're going to be talking about just motion to amend. Any discussion on adding the town clerk to this?
Can I speak to that?
No.
Okay. So the town clerk certifies the appropriations for town meeting. So the $23 million budget, the town clerk is certifying what we vote on. They're a key signature for the tax, set the tax rate. So I would like to see the town clerk be a part of those discussions in town hall. And also the current composition has one elected official and the rest are all appointed. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but another person directly accountable to the taxpayers on the financial team. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak to the amendment? So we're going to vote. This is just on the amendment. I just want to hear if you want to add the town clerk to this budget bylaw or not. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The amendment passes. Now, back to the main motion. Any discussion?
Dave Arujo, 790 Tremont Street. So the way I read this article is that the addition that we just voted on, along with the other boards or elected officials in town, are going to get the information together from all of the department heads. And then they're going to take that information and their recommendation, and they're going to give it to the selectmen and the finance committee. And then the finance committee and the selectmen are going to bring the department heads back in and do that process a second time so that they can determine if the information that came from the first committee is proper and if there's any changes that need to be made. It just seems redundant to me that we're going to have our elected and appointed officials interview our department heads, gather that information, like I said, and then bring it to the finance committee and the selectmen to do that process a second time. It just seems to me that our department heads, like the fire chief, the police chief, and down the line, not that they don't have anything better to do and not that this isn't important, but I want to make sure that we're making the best use of our time, you know? That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, just actually to clarify, Mr. Arujo, like when, based on what is actually being proposed in the bylaw, when the departments, when they do when they do propose their budgets, they will propose their budgets to myself. Oh yeah, like also the town accountant. Oh yeah, like oh yeah, oh yeah, like yeah, it won't actually be. Yeah, like it won't actually be the entire financial team. So yeah, like yeah, so in the month of February, like excuse me, in the month of of February, the town accountant and I will work with the departments to make sure their budgets. So yeah, you're actually in a form that they, that we have an ability to afford, number one. So and then when we bring the FinCom in the, in the BOS together in one joint meeting. We have. So yeah, like that. Point everything will be in order. Like, and basically the budget process can hit the ground running at that point, if that makes sense. Yep.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. Yes. Bylaw passes. Okay, now we are on Article 21.
Amendments to the Town of Dayton General Bylaws shall only be decided by no less than a 2/3 vote.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Jake Stebbins, 751 Council. I guess my question is, why? Why do you need to change it?
Bylaws now, we assumed were always 2/3. We were corrected at the last meeting. The importance of the bylaws, we thought required a 2/3 vote. As you're aware tonight, it's just a handful of people here, and their vote tonight will change whether or not we stay with the 50-50 rule or go with the 2/3. The importance of changing the bylaws, we feel, is more important than not. So we opted to go the 2/3 vote so that more people would be required to pass a bylaw change.
Okay. I can't imagine a necessary reason for that, but thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Neil LaFrance, 2925 Elm Street for the last 35 years. Where you're asking whoever proposes, the Board of Selectmen, for a supermajority to change a bylaw, what you're also doing with the same stroke is allowing a minority to hold back any changes. And where we have here, I would call this a super minority, is going to be voting on this important rule. I just don't think that it really is fair to have a minority in the future to hold up any progress or changes that the town may want to have. If it's proper for me to propose that this, if it's really important to the town, and to the selectmen to have this 2/3, that it be presented at the regular town meeting where we would have a significant quorum to decide this important issue. So I'd like...
So in order to do that, you would need to make a motion to table.
I would like to make a motion to table this until the regular town meeting.
There is a motion to table. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. The ayes have it. Article 22.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Dayton general bylaws by amending section 1 of Article 2 by striking out the last sentence of said section and replacing it with the following. At the annual meeting and before the final adjournment thereof, there shall be an appointment by the moderator of a finance committee consisting of 7 members to serve until the final adjournment of the next annual meeting and until their successors have been appointed, none of whom shall be an officer or a member of any board of the town. Vacancy shall be filled by the moderator.
Motion made and seconded. First of all, I'd like to clarify, Mr. Karen, that it's supposed to be by striking.
Vacancy shall be filled by the remaining members of the committee.
Correct. I believe you said strengthen it. Just want to make sure that the is correct on that. Now, being that this is an article that directly affects my position as town moderator, I will turn over the meeting at this point in time to our town clerk, Ms. Costa, for her to conduct the meeting until the completion of this article.
Good evening, everybody. So I have a motion and a second to Article 22. Is there any discussions? Yes. Please.
Glenn Jefferson, 270 Hillcrest Drive. I guess a couple comments I wanted to make on this for everyone's awareness too is I understand it seems to be a hot topic, which I don't really see that big of a concern of what's being presented, and I'll explain one aspect of it is, right now, we already decided to have the town moderator vote the FinCom. Rehoboth does it differently, and we've seen problems with that, and you have the Board of Selectmen over there appointing their FinCom members. Here, I don't see a concern of if the moderator's appointing vacancies, what's the difference when he's appointing full appointments? If the FinCom filled their vacancies, the moderator just wouldn't reappoint them again when the reappointments came up at annual town meeting. The bigger thing that I ask everyone to hope and amend, as we have the ability to amend this however we want today, is I hope we leave here as a town with the amendment of this article to include a residency requirement, as 2 years ago we had our FinCom chair move out of town and was even reappointed after another term, which I had a significant problem with, but nothing we have in here says there's a town residency requirement. So I'm going to make a motion right now to amend at the end of what is presented, the line, town residency shall be a requirement to serve on this committee.
Second.
Okay, so the motion to amend Article 22 is seconded. Any further discussion to amend? Mr. Gale? Not on the amendment? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed to amend Article 22. To go back to Article 22, we had a second. Is there any discussion on those, please? Yep.
Jake 751 Council Oak again. I guess, the question that I have is why the moderator believes that off cycle they should be responsible for doing anything outside of the town meeting, which is what you are elected to run.
Yes, exactly.
Alexis, question for me, or?
Anybody that wants to answer is perfectly fine. I mean, I think the moderator position is quite specific in its job environments, and the people on the FinCom committee typically are the best people to bring in more people to help themselves do their job. So I'm just a little curious why you need the power outside of the typical twice a year moderator's job to do anything, really.
It's really just to streamline the process.
The FinCom committee can very easily do exactly what they need to do to fill positions extremely quickly. In fact, involving another person in that process is going to make it a longer process.
Okay.
Cool. Great.
Nancy Goulart, 631 Great Terrace. I was first appointed to the Finance Committee in 2002. I and another gentleman were appointed. At that point, there was only one member of the Finance Committee. He was the chairman. He was the last survivor because the rest of the board had quit because of interference from the Board of Selectmen. There was a lot of bad feeling in any case. He and I served until the town meeting, and the moderator. In the meantime, a number of people had applied, just like I and this other gentleman did. And from that group of applicants, 7 of us were picked. I served continually on the Finance Committee until I was elected as selectman in 2007. I went back on FinCom in 2010, continued to serve until 2015 when I went back to be a selectman. If I hadn't become elected to the Board of Assessors, I would have applied for membership to the Finance Committee. I want everyone to understand the importance of this committee, especially those who serve. State law says that your task is to advise and make recommendations to town meeting on the budget and any other areas of municipal finance. You are a unique committee. No one has the power that you have. You don't report to anybody except the people who live in this town, and you cannot be influenced by any member, elected, appointed official, and that's why you can't serve on any other committee. That's how important your job is. And the reason why the vacancies are filled the way they are outside of the annual town meeting. What that gentleman just said about you advertise, you try to get the best people, the best qualified people. You also know people who would be willing to serve. During my term of office, several times, we had vacancies, and we were able to fill them with very good, very qualified people. Town moderator appoints at the annual town meeting. How is he going to fill a vacancy? We're going to have a special town meeting to fill a vacancy on the FinCom? The bylaw is clear. That's an annual appointment made at the town meeting. So my position is, don't vote for this, folks. If you want to have the representation that I feel state law guarantees you, leave this bylaw the way it is and don't touch it. You want these people to report to you and not be influenced by anybody else.
that much power and that much authority to determine who has the background and the skill set specifically for public finance. That's an important factor that was just mentioned, and now we're potentially giving a moderator, using that term, I'm sorry, more power to make that decision when the moderator may not even have any background in public finance him or herself. That's a recipe for disaster, number one. Number two, the other situation we run into is if that person is appointing the individual or individuals
thinks should be on the finance committee with no one else questioning your background, no one else questioning your ability, no resume submissions, no nothing, that's giving that person potentially, and be careful here, the political ability, regardless of the political party they represent, to dictate the course of the future of the town. That is dangerous, extremely dangerous with that. And I believe it's saying this on a dangerous path. And that could be from the other party as well, whatever party this gentleman's in. It goes both ways, it really does. Lastly, in my opinion, any member of the FinCom should be reviewed in advance by other members of the FinCom, similar to other committees, including the town administrator, so that at least the town administrator that has a background in public finance is asking the right questions. I recently listened to a meeting of the FinCom for these warrants to be approved. What was quite clear is that half the people on the FinCom, in my opinion at least, didn't have and don't have a background to understand public finance. If they did, that meeting would have been much simpler and it would have been streamlined. And the comments and questions that were asked would never have been made. The other thing that I think is really important to think about as well is we're in a situation right now in our town where we have to deal potentially, I've heard people talk about tax overrides, I've heard people talk about having, with Crystal Clinic and so forth, other factors. We've got some serious issues to think about. And if our FinCom members don't have the resources, the background to do that, again, we put ourselves in a very, very difficult situation. I think to give this kind of power to one individual is making a serious mistake. And I'm going to cite an example, but without any names or anything. Again, to be clear. At our annual meeting recently, we had several members of the FinCom who were performing their duties responsibly. The same person who is currently our moderator arbitrarily chose to remove some individuals, regardless of their political affiliation, and appoint other individuals who he chose. Now, you can argue they were told ahead of time, yes, maybe they were, a day or two before. That is the nightmare we face with a political party on either side having this kind of control. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to table.
Second.
Motion to table seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You'd like to challenge? Okay. So motion to table passes. No, sorry. Does not pass. Motion to table not passed. Yes. Okay. Okay, so we have asked to do a hand count. Can we please close the doors and have everyone remain seated? We're doing a hand count to motion to table.
Mr. Powell has requested that a hand count be done. Any member has a right to ask for a hand count regardless of what you feel or do not feel the result was. It's fair to everybody. I will do it right.
Can we please close the doors, have everyone remain seated? Please have the counters come forward. Correct.
vote on this time?
Motion to table.
And then after that, if we don't table, we're going to vote yes or no on the article? Yes. Okay, thank you.
What does a vote yes mean? Yes means to table, or does it mean?
Yes means to table.
And a vote of no means to not table, but keep the discussion open.
Correct.
Thank you.
All in favor, please raise your hand and keep your hand raised until finished counting. In favor to table this motion. All in favor, please raise your hand and keep them raised. All opposed, please raise your hands.
You can turn that off. There's a little thing on the side.
Okay, so we had 17 to table, 68 to against tabling this article. So motion to table this article does not pass. Sure.
Nancy Boulat, 631 Great Terrace, North Dayton. What I'm going to do is read the motion as I understand it should be. We do have an approved amendment that related to residency, so that passed. This is the amendment and the article that I suggestion we vote on tonight. To see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Dayton general bylaws by amending Section 1 of Article 2 by striking out vacancies shall be filled by the moderator. Now I'm going to read the entire thing. At the annual town meeting and before the final adjournment thereof, there shall be appointed by the moderator a finance committee consisting of 7 members to serve until the final adjournment of the next annual meeting, and until their successors have been appointed, none of whom shall be an officer or a member of any board of the town. Vacancies shall be filled by the remaining members of the committee. Town residency shall be a requirement to serve on the finance committee.
Okay, to amend this article, there has been a second. Any discussions?
Read it one more time for us, please. Thank you.
At the annual town meeting and before the final adjournment thereof, there shall be appointed by the moderator a finance committee consisting of 7 members to serve until the final adjournment of the next annual meeting and until their successors have been appointed, none of whom shall be an officer or a member of any board of the town. Vacancies shall be filled by the remaining members of the committee. Town residency shall be a requirement to serve on the finance committee.
I'm sorry, did I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to amend the Article 22 to strike out the vacancies shall be filled by the moderator. So, let's see, any discussions? Good, all in favor? Sorry.
I would like to make one comment as far as whether the present members of the Finance Committee would then be stayed on. I will say there is a learning curve with any committee that anybody from this town joins, and I think some continuity of this committee is very important, only to know the content of all that is discussed, get used to reading the budget and knowing what numbers you're looking at, and the expectation of continuity. So I think some consistency in multiple year terms for members of this committee is very important.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes to amend the vacancy shall be filled by moderator.
No.
Sorry. So, to amend. Okay, is there any discussion on the article as amended? Ready? No more discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I'm tempted to discuss things, but I would ask all of you people that, and, you know, especially those who are making accusations, please talk to me personally. Moving on, Article 23. There is no 23. There's been a motion to dissolve. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Meeting adjourned. Meeting dissolved.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can entertain